Welcome to Stories for Sleep, a place where stories whisper with the night, and knowledge is retold like a gentle lullaby for a tired mind. If, at this moment, you are lying down, your eyes softly closed while your thoughts are still wandering somewhere, you are not alone. Many of us enter sleep with a mind that feels too loud, and that is exactly why this video exists. At Stories for Sleep, we don't tell stories to demand your attention. We tell them so you can let go. Tonight's journey is called The Most Relaxing Facts About Mountains to Help You Fall Asleep Easily. Ancient mountains, slow, quiet, and enduring, will become your companions, helping your breath soften and your mind drift gently into stillness. There is nothing to remember, nothing to learn. Just listen and allow your imagination to rest. If you enjoy moments of peace like this, consider subscribing to Stories for Sleep and turning on notifications. Each night we will be here ready to tell you another gentle story, so sleep can arrive more naturally. Now make yourself comfortable and let us begin. Perhaps in this moment, as you close the door on a long day, your mind is still restless. Small but persistent thoughts continue to whisper like waves brushing against the shore of consciousness, making sleep feel distant. We live in a world that is always moving, urging us to be faster, to do more, to reach higher. And because of that, exhaustion doesn't settle only in the body, but sinks deep into the soul. Carl Gustav Jung once said, "Modern man does not suffer from a lack of knowledge, but from a loss of connection with his inner depth. When night falls, the unconscious begins to speak. But instead of listening, we often resist it with worry, with thinking, with efforts to force ourselves to sleep." This video asks nothing of you. No effort, no understanding, just listening. Imagine standing before an ancient mountain range. These mountains are in no hurry. They were here long before your worries, long before your unanswered questions. In Jungian thought, mountains are not only images of the outer world, they are symbols of inner depth, places where the small ego can rest in the presence of the vast unconscious. On this journey, we will gently touch the most soothing truths about mountains, how they are born in silence, how they change the world without speaking, and how they whisper to the deepest parts of you. Not to teach, but to remind you of the slow rhythm that once belonged to you. Each story, each image of mountains in this video is told like a lullaby, helping your mind settle, easing tension, and opening the door to deep sleep. If you allow it, the mountains will carry some of your heavy thoughts for you, leaving behind only safety and stillness. And when you are ready, let us begin not by climbing toward a peak, but by gently entering a peaceful inner space where the mind can rest and sleep arrives naturally. Part 1. An invitation to step into the high places. Some invitations do not need to be spoken aloud. They do not urge demand or impose obligation. They simply appear at the exact moment when we are tired enough to stop striving, ready to loosen our grip on what we have been holding. The invitation to step into the high places carries this spirit. It is not a call to conquer, nor a promise of victory. It is a quiet whisper for those preparing to sleep as the daytime ego recedes and the door to the unconscious begins to open. From the very beginning, introducing the channel Sleepy Science should not feel like promotion, but like a gentle reassurance you are in the right place to rest. In a modern world where knowledge often arrives with tension, speed, and analysis, Sleepy Science chooses a different path, retelling science as a bedtime story. This is not science to wake you up, but science that allows you to soften. And in doing so, it touches a deep psychological need of modern life to be understood without being forced to understand, to receive without reacting, to be still without guilt. When listeners are guided into the world of Earth's highest mountains, the importance lies not in meters of elevation or geographic names. In depth psychology, mountains are archetypal images, universal symbols that have lived alongside humanity since ancient times. They represent something larger than the individual, older than personal anxiety, and more enduring than daily upheaval. To invite someone into the world of mountains is, in truth, to invite them out of the narrow world of the ego, where thought circles endlessly around responsibility, fault, and expectation. Describing mountains as frozen waves of stone carries a particularly Jungian paradox. Waves suggest movement and rhythm. Stone suggests stillness and weight. When combined, they reveal that stillness is not the opposite of movement. It is movement slowed beyond perception. Mountains do not stand still. They simply move in a way that does not provoke anxiety. Before sleep, this message is profound. You do not need to stop thinking immediately. You only need to let your thoughts slow. Calling mountains the living memory of the earth gently removes the listener from personal time with its urgency and deadlines and places them in deep time. In deep time, there are no failures, no tasks to finish before morning. And as the mind senses this vastness, it begins to feel safe. The pressure to control dissolves. The ego is allowed to rest, while the unconscious begins its quiet work of healing, organizing, and guiding sleep. The calming rhythm of this opening is not only about reading speed or tone of voice. On a deeper level, it synchronizes with the listener's biological rhythms. Longer sentences, slower pacing, fewer peaks all send a signal to the nervous system it is safe to let go. As Jung observed, the unconscious responds not to logic but to rhythm and feeling. A true invitation is not an explanation, it is an experience. When listeners are invited to let go and allow imagination to drift, a shift in consciousness begins. Imagination in depth, psychology, is the bridge between ego and unconscious. It allows archetypal images, mountains, stone waves, time to enter without control. And in that moment, sleep begins forming not as a biological shutdown, but as a return inward. If written and spoken with care, part 1 becomes more than an introduction. It becomes a ritual of transition, guiding the listener from daytime into night. It tells them here nothing is demanded of you. You only need to exist like a mountain in the dark, doing nothing yet complete. And so the invitation to climb, paradoxically, becomes an invitation to descend into inner depth, where silence is no longer frightening and sleep is no longer sought, but allowed to arrive. Part 2. The birth of mountains, continental collision, and deep time. Before a mountain appears on the horizon, before it is named, measured, or made sacred, something quiet has already been happening. No explosion, no clear moment of birth. Only movements so slow they are almost imperceptible. Massive continental plates, drifting silently, millimeter by millimeter each year, moving toward one another, as if time were infinite. The birth of mountains is not an event, it is a process. And this is what makes it so soothing to a tired mind. In a world where everything happens too fast, the idea that meaningful change can take millions of years is deeply comforting. It reminds the unconscious, not everything needs urgency to have value. When continents collide, they do not destroy one another. They bend, compress, and rise. Rock does not shatter instantly. It learns to endure pressure, to change form without losing essence. In Jungian psychology, this becomes a powerful inner symbol. The deepest conflicts of the soul rarely cause immediate collapse. They simmer, accumulate, and eventually lift something new into being a stronger psychological structure, though never without effort. Mountains are the visible expression of deep time. This is as much psychological truth as geological fact. Deep time is not measured by clocks or calendars. It is the time of the unconscious where memory, emotion, and experience are stored without order. Listening to millions of years of mountain formation gently recalibrates the mind. Daily worries shrink. Unresolved pressures stop demanding immediate answers. Mountains appear still yet remain alive. Inside them, forces continue to move. Tensions remain held in layers of stone. This mirrors psychological maturity, as Jung described it. Outward calm with inward transformation. And perhaps before sleep, the mind longs for this state, not doing more, yet still becoming. As you listen to the story of mountain birth, you need not visualize clearly. Simply allow the slowness to spread. Notice your breath deepening, syncing with Earth's ancient rhythm. There is nothing to complete, no destination, only formation slow enough that you do not need to follow. Here, sleep is no longer a shutdown of consciousness, but a return to deep time where everything unfolds at its own pace. And like mountains rising silently, your mind begins to find its own shape of rest. Much of mountain formation happens in darkness, not night, but deep within Earth, unseen and unnecessary to see. In Jung's psychology, darkness is not danger. It is simply what consciousness has not yet illuminated. And like mountains, the most important inner changes happen beyond conscious control. Continents do not decide to collide. They simply move according to their nature. No intention, no hurry. This offers deep comfort before sleep. Not everything in life must be controlled to turn out right. When pressure lasts long enough, rock bends instead of breaking. Jung believed the psyche has similar endurance. Suppressed emotions need not explode to be released. Sometimes they only need time to reorganize into something stronger. Deep time becomes a warm blanket for a tired mind. In it, there is no right or wrong, only continuation. Daily anxieties shrink like ripples on a vast lake. Perhaps this is why stories of mountain birth lull us so effectively. They do not stimulate, they reassure. You do not need to solve everything to rest. Just as Earth did not wait for perfection to create mountains, your mind does not need total peace to sleep. As night continues, these ancient movements are no longer about distant Earth. They become a gentle metaphor for you for quiet inner changes, unfolding without force. All that is required is permission to exist within the patience of deep time. Part 3. The balance between uplift and erosion. A mountain rises from Earth's depths. Its story does not end. Another story begins erosion. Wind brushing slopes, water entering cracks, ice expanding and retreating with the seasons. Slowly, evenly, shape changes, not through catastrophe, but through countless gentle touches. Uplift and erosion are not opposites. They coexist, shaping the land together. As tectonic forces lift rock upward, wind and water soften its edges. Mountains rise and wear down at the same time. This fragile balance creates the quiet beauty we feel in their presence. In Jungian psychology, the human psyche works the same way. Inner forces push us toward growth, while life's friction, disappointment, loss softens the ego. Without uplift, we stagnate. Without erosion, we harden. True maturity lives between them. Before sleep, erosion offers permission to soften. You do not need to hold your shape. You do not need to be sharp or perfect. Like mountains, you may allow life's weather to smooth what has been rigid too long. Some ranges rise faster than they erode. Others become round, ancient, gentle. None are wrong. Each landscape is a long dialogue between inner force and outer touch. So too with your mind. Some seasons lift you, others wear you down. Jung taught that both are essential to individuation. Without erosion, the ego cannot listen to the unconscious. As you listen in a half-dreaming state, a quiet message forms. You do not need to remain intact to be safe. Some things fade because they have completed their purpose. Nothing is lost without meaning. Every grain of stone becomes part of valley, river, soil. In Jung's view, inner transformation works the same way. What fades is not gone, only rearranged. Wind does not ask permission. Rain does not judge. And this non-personal change is deeply comforting at night. Not everything that happens is your fault. Some things simply follow life's rhythm. If lately you feel more eroded than lifted, tired, less sharp, the mountains whisper this is not failure. This may be the softening that allows depth. Old ranges like the Appalachians are no longer towering, yet they feel safe. Jung believed wisdom appears when the ego no longer needs to rise. Before sleep, these images allow you to accept fatigue as natural. Mountains cannot choose only uplift or erosion. They exist within tension, and so do we. Loosening control often brings deeper stability. As images repeat wind, water, stone, time, the unconscious feels safe. Familiarity signals sleep. There is no danger, nothing sudden. And when words blur into images, balance is reached between waking and sleep, ego and unconscious. Like a gentle slope, where height changes too slowly to notice. Here there is no effort, only allowance. And in that allowance, sleep arrives naturally, slow, kind, and deep enough to truly rest. Part 4. Mountains do not stand still, moving with the continents. If you imagine mountains as immovable masses of stone, forever anchored to a fixed place on Earth, it may be comforting to know this. Mountains are moving too. Not with footsteps, not in ways that leave visible traces, but drifting along with the continental plates very slowly, very steadily over hundreds of millions of years. This movement is so subtle that no human lifetime could ever perceive it. And precisely because of that, it carries a deep sense of peace. There are mountain ranges that once lay near the equator, bathed in tropical sunlight, and then gradually drifted toward colder latitudes, carrying within them the memory of ancient oceans long gone. There are mountains that were once seabeds, homes to microscopic life, now rising high among clouds. Mountains do not merely store time, they travel with time. And this journey happens without decision, without conscious effort. In depth psychology, this is a gentle image for the human mind before sleep. Because if even mountains, symbols of stability, are in motion, then your own changes, detours, or shifts away from where you once stood become easier to accept. Carl Gustav Jung emphasized that inner life is never static. It is always moving, whether consciousness notices or not. And most of the most important movements happen when we are not trying to control them. As night falls, and you listen to the story of mountains drifting through eras, the mind begins to feel a new kind of safety. Safety within movement. Not all stability comes from standing still. Sometimes stability comes from allowing yourself to drift within a rhythm larger than you. Just as continents carry mountains through time, the unconscious carries you through phases of life without the need for a clear map. The ancient memories held within mountains, traces of vanished oceans, lost climates, worlds that no longer exist, are like layers of memory within the human psyche. They are not always accessible to conscious awareness. They lie deep and quiet, surfacing only in dreams, sudden emotions, or in the still moments before sleep. Jung called this the voice of the collective unconscious, where personal history merges with something far older and wider. When you hear about mountains moving, you may not picture distance or direction clearly, and that does not matter. What matters is the sensation of drifting, the sense that you do not need to hold yourself in place at all costs. Some nights the mind needs to be reminded you are allowed not to know where you are in the journey. You are still being carried. You still belong to a process, even if you cannot name it. The rhythm of this part should feel steady, as if you were resting on a vast continental plate, gliding silently beneath a star-filled sky. No shocks, no sudden turns, only continuation. And within that continuation, the nervous system begins to relax, recognizing that there is nothing it needs to guard against. As consciousness softens, the story of moving mountains becomes a quiet reminder you do not need to keep yourself fixed in order to be safe. Sometimes allowing yourself to drift with the deeper current of life is the truest form of rest. Like mountains, you may be moving through places you never imagined, and that is entirely okay. Perhaps what makes the idea of moving mountains especially soothing before sleep is that it frees us from the need to define ourselves rigidly. In daily life, we are encouraged to be stable, clear, certain of where we stand and where we are going. But Earth does not work that way. It does not stand still waiting for a perfect plan. It moves even when no one is watching. And mountains, symbols of endurance, move with it without resistance or hesitation. Ancient mountain ranges carry memories of journeys so long that the notions of beginning and end dissolve. When a mountain drifts with its continent, it does not leave one place or seek another. It simply continues to exist in a different context. This image is deeply important for the unconscious, especially at night when questions of direction and meaning feel heavier. Jung suggested that one deep source of anxiety is over-identification with the ego's current position. When we believe we are only this role, this circumstance, this version of ourselves, any change feels like a threat. Mountains teach something else. You can move far for a very long time without losing your essence. Stone remains stone. A mountain remains a mountain. Only the sky above and the land around it change. In the half-waking, half-dreaming state, the mind no longer distinguishes sharply between geological images and inner ones. Mountains drifting through eras resemble life stages drifting within you. Childhood, adulthood, loss, change, all once places where you stood. And now, as you lie down, no longer needing to cling to any single point, the thought that everything can move without collapsing brings deep relief. Some nights sleep does not come because the mind is still holding on to an old image of the self, the person of yesterday, of unfinished expectations. This part of the story whispers, you do not have to stay there. Just as mountains left ancient seas without losing their being, you too can leave older versions of yourself gently. The pace of continental drift, mere centimeters per year, is almost imperceptible, and because of that it feels safe. It does not startle the nervous system. It does not trigger vigilance. When the story moves at this pace, the brain synchronizes with a form of motion that carries no threat. Awareness fades, giving way to a pleasant sense of floating, like being carried by a deep current without needing to swim. And in that moment, you may no longer remember whether you are listening to a story about mountains or about yourself. The two merge. Mountains drift through time. You drift into sleep. No clear boundary. No demand to stay attentive. Only gentle continuation where movement becomes an ancient lullaby of the earth. At the end of this part, no conclusion is needed. Mountains never arrive. They simply continue. And likewise, you do not need to know how you will feel tomorrow. Right now, all that is needed is to allow yourself to be carried very slowly, very gently into the deeper place where sleep is already waiting. Part 5. Iconic mountain ranges of Earth. When we speak of Earth's iconic mountain ranges, what matters is not memorizing names or locations. Before becoming entries in geography books, each range existed as a temperament, a unique breath of the planet. And when we listen to their stories before sleep, the unconscious begins to recognize that Earth, like the human psyche, has more than one face. Some mountain ranges are still very young. They continue to rise little by little, as if Earth has not yet finished telling their story. Sharp peaks, towering heights, a feeling of tension and vitality, like phases in human life, when everything feels possible, when ambition and challenge coexist. In Jungian terms, this mirrors an ego in formation testing its strength. Before sleep, touching this image is not meant to stimulate, but to place ambition within a wider context, where it no longer presses. Elsewhere, there are very old mountain ranges. No longer tall or sharp, they carry a deep calm. Their rounded forms tell stories of hundreds of millions of years shaped by wind and rain. These are mountains that no longer need to prove anything. Jung believed true wisdom often emerges when the ego has been worn smooth. Before sleep, these ancient ranges whisper gently, you do not need to be at the peak to have worth. Some mountains were born from the ocean floor, carrying memories of water, ancient life, and vanished worlds. Once very low, they slowly rose, bearing traces of a long journey. Psychologically, they resemble deeply buried experiences, feelings once dismissed or hidden, that later become the foundation of maturity. Hearing about them reassures the unconscious that no part of you is meaningless, even what was once deep and dark. Other ranges have existed alongside humans for thousands of years, becoming places of refuge, reverence, contemplation. Not just landscapes, but silent companions of human history. In-depth psychology. Such images represent the archetype of the protector offering safety through presence alone. Before sleep, simply imagining being near mountains calms the nervous system, echoing collective memories of shelter. Each range tells not only a geological story but a psychological one. Some speak of beginnings, some of endurance, some of letting go, and some simply exist without explanation. Jung believed the unconscious recognizes these distinctions naturally, without reason. As you listen in relaxation, you may feel drawn to one range without knowing why. That is enough. The unconscious chooses images that fit your current state. And just as in real life, you do not need to climb a mountain to feel its presence being near. It is enough. The rhythm here is like a gentle journey across Earth without requiring attention. If you fall asleep midway, the story has done its work. The mountains remain, and you in sleep find your own mountain, a place where the mind may rest. As names fade and locations blur, you leave the world of labels. There is no young or old, high or low, success or failure. Only the sense of being held by something larger, slower, and far more patient than human life. The mountains continue to exist even after you sleep. And that brings deep reassurance. You do not need to guard the world tonight. Your only task now is to rest, just as Earth rests within its own movement. Part 6. Hidden mountains. Beneath ice and sea, not all mountains are visible. In fact, much of Earth's mountainous world lies beyond sight, buried beneath kilometers of ice, or hidden deep beneath dark oceans. These mountains are rarely seen, climbed, or named, yet they exist bearing their full weight and history in silence. There is something deeply gentle about hidden mountains. They do not need to be seen to be real. In Jungian psychology, this mirrors the unconscious, the largest, deepest part of the psyche, seldom illuminated by awareness. It does not disappear when unseen. It continues to shape and support us, sometimes speaking through dreams. Beneath Antarctica's thick ice lie ancient ranges that existed long before the ice covered them. They do not resist concealment. They simply endure. Before sleep, this image comforts deeply. Parts of you that are covered are not dead. They are resting. Beneath the ocean, beyond sunlight, lies Earth's longest mountain system, the mid-ocean ridges constantly creating new rock. Even in absolute darkness, Earth continues to create. Jung believed the unconscious is not only a storehouse of the past, but a source of renewal. As you fall asleep, it quietly reorganizes the fragments of the day. Hidden mountains remind us that not everything valuable must surface. Some feelings, thoughts, parts of self are not ready to be named, and that is safe. Before sleep, allowing them to remain untouched is rest itself. As words fade, sleep arrives from below, from deep layers of the mind. Darkness becomes a blanket, not a threat. You are held, supported, allowed to drift. Even what you do not yet understand about yourself is being carried by something deeper and stronger than you imagine. Part 7. Rapidly formed mountains, volcanoes, and short time. Not all mountains take millions of years to form. Some rise quickly, so quickly that a human life can witness their birth. Volcanoes emerge, erupt cool, and stand as new forms. Their speed does not disrupt Earth's order. It is simply another rhythm in the same long song. Before sleep, volcanoes may sound intense, but listen closely. Intensity has rhythm. Eruption is followed by cooling, by stillness. And it is that stillness that sleep recognizes. Jung viewed emotional eruptions not as failures but as energy from the unconscious seeking expression. Suppressed too long, it becomes chaotic. Allowed to rise and settle, it transforms. Volcanoes teach us fast does not mean wrong. Some changes must happen quickly, because pressure has built long enough. Late-night surges of thought are not mistakes. They are release. What matters is what follows. Lava cools. New ground forms. Life returns. Jung believed unjudged emotional release allows deeper integration. Before sleep, this image whispers what rose today will settle. The story moves gently. Volcanoes are cycles, not disasters. And as you listen, your breath follows the same pattern, deepening, slowing, resting. In darkness, this reminds us that Earth has both deep time and short time, and so do you. Some nights the mind needs only one moment of expression before rest. Like cooling lava beneath a night sky, your thoughts lose heat. Nothing must be solved. You may lie in the quiet after intensity, the place where sleep arrives most naturally. Extinct volcanoes are calm landscapes. Jung would call this integration. Strong emotions need not be erased, only completed. And as this part ends, there is no final explosion, only soft settling. Like a volcano at rest, your mind finds its quiet again. No effort required, just allowing the stillness to come. Part 8. Mountains beyond Earth, other worlds. As the night deepens and your mind begins to loosen its hold on the familiar outlines of the world, this may be the right moment to step beyond Earth. Not with the body, but with imagination, the most natural vehicle of the unconscious. Out there, in the quiet space between the stars, mountains still exist. No trees, no familiar wind, no human footprints, only form height and a silent presence within the vastness of the universe. Some mountains rise higher than anything we know on Earth. They stand beneath thin skies in harsh environments, yet remain almost as if the universe itself needs pillars to lean on. In Jungian thought, images that exceed personal experience often touch the collective unconscious, where the human being senses belonging to something far greater than individual life. When you hear about mountains on other planets, what matters is not scientific detail, but the feeling of expansion. The mind loosens familiar boundaries. Problems that felt large during the day suddenly grow smaller, not because they are unimportant, but because the context has shifted. Jung believed that one of the deepest forms of healing comes from removing the ego from the center, so it no longer has to carry the entire world alone. On icy worlds, mountains form from frozen water, drifting and cracking according to unfamiliar cycles. Time there moves differently, unhurried, unpressured. And when the unconscious touches these images, it realizes that not all rhythms of existence must resemble human life. Some worlds exist very slowly, very far away, yet are complete in their own way. There are also planets where mountains are not made of familiar rock, but of metal or lava, cooled under entirely different conditions. These mountains may feel alien, yet they carry a deep sense of stability, the stability of matter, of structure, of cosmic order. Before sleep, this image brings a quiet reassurance, whether you understand it or not. The universe follows laws steady enough to hold everything in place. In space, sound does not travel. There is no noise, no speech. Mountains beyond Earth exist in absolute silence. And that silence has a powerful lullaby-like quality. It resembles the deep quiet within your own mind where thoughts no longer form words, only sensations. Jung believed silence is not absence, but the environment in which the deepest layers of the psyche can reorganize themselves. As the story carries you farther from Earth, the unconscious begins to loosen its identification with everyday life. You are no longer only the person of today with schedules and responsibilities. You become a being listening to the universe, very small yet not lost. Mountains beyond Earth do not care who you are. And that very indifference brings a feeling of unconditional acceptance. At this point, you may no longer clearly picture mountains, planets, or space. Images begin to dissolve, like stars fading as the eyes close. This is a good sign. It means the mind is ready to leave the world of concrete images and enter the world of dreams. Mountains remain on Earth, beyond Earth, and within you, but you no longer need to follow them. Like a ship drifting slowly through quiet space, you may continue to drift without direction, without destination, trusting that a greater order is gently holding your sleep. There is a special moment when a person looks at the night sky and realizes that Earth is not the center of every story. In that moment, the everyday ego with its names, roles, and duties becomes smaller, and this shrinking is deeply healing. Jung called it a numinous experience, touching something distant yet familiar, humbling yet supportive. Mountains beyond Earth exist without being witnessed. They carry no survival meaning for humans, no myths or personal history. And because of this, they are utterly neutral. Before sleep, the mind needs this neutrality where there is no judgment, no comparison, no personal narrative to maintain. When imagining mountains on distant planets, the unconscious releases its grip on personal memory. It drifts into a wider space where images belong to no one. Jung believed the collective unconscious holds such images, symbols untouched by personal identity yet resonant for all. Mountains beyond Earth thus become symbols of pure existence. On some planets, day and night last for decades. Darkness is not temporary, but sustained. Mountains exist there calmly, without tension. This mirrors your present moment. When the lights are off, the day has passed, and there is no need to rush back into conscious awareness. In space, there is no clear up or down, no familiar orientation. And when the unconscious touches this idea, it releases the need to locate itself. You do not need to know where you stand in life right now. Like mountains beyond Earth, you exist fully, even without a clear map. Jung wrote that modern suffering often comes from over-identification with consciousness. When we believe we are only what we know about ourselves, the unknown becomes threatening. But the universe with its silent mountains reminds us that the unknown need not be dangerous. It may simply be larger than what we are used to. As this part of the story continues, you may feel a pleasant kind of tiredness, not from thinking but from no longer needing to hold on to anything. Mountains beyond Earth do not ask you to understand or imagine precisely. They exist as a quiet background, wide enough for awareness to dissolve without fear. At this stage, sleep arrives not as a door closing but as a merging. Consciousness does not disappear. It blends into something larger. Just as Earth is one planet among many, you are one thought within a vast mental flow. And this does not erase you. It allows you to rest. Mountains beyond Earth continue to exist in cosmic silence. They do not know you are asleep. And that not knowing brings deep peace. The world does not need you awake to keep functioning. You may let go completely, very gently, very slowly, as sleep carries you beyond images, beyond words, back into the primordial stillness where everything is held. Part 9. Mountains and Climate Architects of the Sky. Some architects need no blueprints, no explanations, no recognition. Mountains are such architects. They shape not only the land, but quietly design the sky above. Winds change direction when they meet slopes. Clouds gather, thicken, dissolve. Rain falls in one place and not another. All of it happens silently, as if the climate itself were listening to stone. Before sleep, imagining these invisible movements brings a deep sense of safety. Climate-like emotion often makes us feel powerless. We cannot control rain, just as we cannot fully control our moods. Mountains do not try to control. They simply exist, and that presence alone changes everything around them. In Jungian psychology, unconscious forces shaping the psyche resemble climate. They do not always appear, do not obey personal will, yet determine the emotional atmosphere of inner life. Some days are overcast, some periods dry. Sometimes rain comes unexpectedly, softening places long hardened. Mountains create rain by standing still. Moist air rises, cools, condenses, and falls. No effort, no action, only height, stability, patience. Before sleep, this image whispers, you do not need to do anything more for emotions to release. Sometimes simply stopping allows the necessary rain to arrive. Behind mountains lie dry regions, quiet deserts. In inner life, these are emotional pauses. Jung did not see them as failures, but as rest spaces for restructuring. Listening to this, the mind senses a vast order. Nothing is random. Winds, rain, emotions all follow deeper laws. Trusting this order eases the ego, which no longer must manage everything. Some mountain ranges shape entire climate systems without moving. This tells the unconscious you do not need to change position to make a difference. Sometimes the way you exist is enough. As rhythm slows, breath deepens. Thought releases. Awareness listens like distant rain. And just as the sky shifts at nightfall, the mind softens. Mountains remain. Climate continues. You may rest, trusting the deep structures holding your inner sky. Part 10. Mountains and water reservoirs of life. When we think of water, we think of movement. Rivers flow. Rain falls. Seas rise and fall. But mountains are where water rests, held in ice rock, high lakes. Quietly, patiently, mountains store life. Before sleep, this silent accumulation brings safety. Not everything must flow immediately. Some feelings must be held cooled, allowed to wait. In Jungian psychology, water symbolizes the unconscious, deep and receptive. Mountains holding water become symbols of containment. Snow melts gradually. This slow release nourishes life. If everything melted at once, destruction would follow. Before sleep, this whispers, you do not need to release everything tonight. Great rivers begin quietly. Inner change does too. Jung believed sleep is when these unseen currents form. Listening, the mind senses rhythm holding and releasing. Trust replaces urgency. Some ice within you, memories, sorrows, need not melt now. They are safe where they are. As narration slows, images blur into sensation. The body softens. Awareness lets go. Mountains and water merge into an ancient lullaby. You may hold what must be held and release what is ready. Sleep completes the rest. Part 11. Life on mountains. Adaptation and evolution. High on mountains, life persists quietly. Smaller leaves, deeper roots, slower movement. Nothing rushes to live. Before sleep, this comforts. Not all environments require the same pace. Jung believed suffering comes from living at the wrong rhythm. Mountains allow life to adapt. Higher up, life simplifies. Less oxygen, less movement. Not loss, refinement. Inner maturity follows the same path. Mountain ecosystems are layered, each complete. Jung saw this as the psyche's diversity. Evolution here is slow but precise. Jung believed the unconscious evolves too, releasing what no longer serves, often during sleep. Listening, you feel adaptation as gentle flow. No struggle, just enough change. Some parts of you live at altitude, more sensitive. This is wisdom, not weakness. As this part closes, life continues quietly. Sleep opens like a valley. Part 12. Humans and mountains. Biology, culture, spirit. Long before maps, humans lived with mountains, not as conquerors, but learners. Mountains taught patience and respect. Biologically, bodies adapt at altitude. Breathing deepens. The heart adjusts. Jung believed the body holds ancient wisdom. Culturally, mountains evoke the sacred not because of power, but presence. Jung called this the numinous. Mountains appear as bridges between sky and earth, symbols between consciousness and the unconscious. Before sleep, this brings safety. Humans retreat to mountains to listen. Jung believed answers come when noise fades. Across history, mountains evoke the same feeling. Collective memory responds. This story does not ask you to climb, only to be near. Sometimes presence is enough. As narration fades, mountains become sensation support, shelter, belonging. You are not alone. Mountains remain quietly reminding you. And tonight, as sleep comes, that ancient bond holds you very gently, very deeply. Part 13. Mountains and unusual natural phenomena. There are moments on mountains that leave people gently bewildered. Light suddenly changes its quality. Clouds pause as if listening to something unseen. Sound echoes in unfamiliar ways. In such moments, mountains are no longer just stone and elevation. They become a stage where nature reveals phenomena that are both scientific and dreamlike. Before sleep, listening to these unusual phenomena has a subtle effect. It softens the boundary between what must be known and what does not need explanation. Jung believed the human mind feels safest when it is not forced to explain everything. Mountain phenomena, lenticular clouds, inverted shadows cast into the sky, shifting colors of light do not demand understanding. They only ask to be seen, felt, and then allowed to pass. On some mountain mornings, sunlight passes through thin mist, forming gentle halos around human shadows. Such sights once led ancient people to believe they were touching the sacred. Jung called this a symbolic experience, when a physical phenomenon touches the deeper layers of the psyche, not through meaning but through a felt sense of connection. Sound on mountains is different as well. Wind does not merely blow, it resonates. Footsteps echo, then dissolve. Sometimes falling snow creates sounds so soft they feel like whispers. Before sleep, these images guide the mind away from language and into pure sensation. Thoughts no longer need to form sentences. They become subtle vibrations, then gradually settle. Some clouds on mountains remain motionless for hours, holding their shape as if time itself has slowed. Jung believed the unconscious is especially responsive to such moments. Moments when familiar flow temporarily pauses. Before sleep, your mind is also seeking such a pause. Not to stop existing, but to stop being pushed. Thunder and lightning in the mountains often arrive quickly, resound widely, and then depart, leaving clarity behind. Though powerful, they do not last. And it is precisely this brevity that makes them less frightening. Jung viewed such phenomena as images of psychological energy, intense but not permanent. Before sleep, hearing about them helps the unconscious understand that inner tensions can come and go without needing to be held onto. High in the mountains, the night sky opens wider. Stars feel closer. Darkness grows deeper yet not heavy. There is a particular stillness when standing between sky and earth, far from human traces. Before sleep, this image offers a return to a more primal state where the mind no longer needs to defend itself. At its deepest level, this part of the story does not aim to astonish you. It aims to soften you. When physics becomes beautiful enough to need no explanation, the ego can step back. And when the ego steps back, sleep finds space to appear. The strange phenomena of mountains do not happen to be remembered. They appear and dissolve. And this dissolving is the gentlest lullaby of all. You do not need to hold on to the light. You do not need to keep the sound. Just let them pass, as thoughts are slowly passing through your mind right now. Mountains continue to create these phenomena, whether anyone witnesses them or not. And tonight, as you lie still without needing to see anything, these subtle movements can still be felt at a deeper level, where sleep waits quiet and patient, like the most beautiful natural phenomenon of all, you. There is something freeing about mountain phenomena. They rarely repeat themselves in the same way. Today's light is not yesterday's. A cloud never returns to its old shape. Sound echoes, then leaves no trace. In a world obsessed with storing and controlling, this impermanence offers deep release. Jung believed the unconscious especially welcomes experiences that cannot be contained because they do not force the mind to hold on. As mountain light shifts minute by minute from pale gold to cool blue to deep violet, consciousness releases the need to name. Everything becomes pure movement. Before sleep, this is exactly what the mind needs. No more information, no more meaning, only the flow of sensation. Sleep does not come from understanding the world, but from ceasing to try. Some phenomena appear only when we are not waiting for them. A faint halo around a mountain, shadow mist bending the horizon, a silence so deep you hear your own breath. Jung called these moments windows of the unconscious, where the boundary between inside and outside softens. And it is precisely this softness that makes the mind feel safe. Night sounds on mountains carry another quality. Not absolute silence, but silence with depth. Wind touches stone. Space vibrates faintly. Pebbles roll somewhere far away, then disappear. Before sleep, such undefined sounds help the brain leave analysis behind. and enter reception, the state where sleep arrives most easily. Jung believed modern people are tired, not because they lack experiences, but because they must process too many. Mountain phenomena require no processing. They arrive, touch, and leave. And as you listen to them in the night, your thoughts are allowed to do the same. There are moments on mountains when sky and earth seem to merge, no clear boundary remains. This is a powerful Jungian image, a temporary union of consciousness and the unconscious. Before sleep, you are entering a similar zone. Not fully awake, not yet dreaming, simply in between, and in between is the safest place to be. As this part of the story continues, you do not need to follow every phenomenon. If images blur, if words lose clarity, that is not distraction. It is a sign that control is being gently handed over. Like nature on the mountain, your mind is working without supervision. And then the phenomena are no longer outside images. They become inner sensations, light, spacious, undemanding. Mountains do not need you to understand them. Light does not need you to remember it. And sleep does not need you to try. At the end of this section, there is no emphasis, no conclusion, only a soft dissolving like mist fading into cold air. The phenomena have done their work, easing the ego, making space for sleep. And when you no longer clearly distinguish mountain from cloud or cloud from your own thoughts, that is when the mind has entered the deep zone, where everything is allowed to appear and disappear naturally, gently, just as sleep is now, beginning to hold you. Part 14. Mountains, Disturbance and Hidden Strength. There is a quiet paradox. In mountains, they symbolize stability, yet hold some of the most powerful disturbances on Earth. Beneath still surfaces, tension remains silent, patient, waiting for the right moment to move. Mountains do not deny their strength. They simply do not display it. Before sleep, touching this idea offers deep comfort. Humans are the same. Some emotions, tensions, and inner conflicts do not vanish simply because we stop thinking about them. They exist at deeper levels, like geological faults beneath mountains. Jung believed the goal is not to eliminate these forces, but to acknowledge them without fear. Earthquakes, landslides, avalanches, these events may happen suddenly, but they are not random. They result from long accumulation, from pressure held too long. In depth psychology, emotional crises follow the same pattern. When the ego maintains order for too long, the unconscious releases energy. This release, though intense, belongs to the life cycle. What matters is this: after disturbance, mountains remain. The landscape changes, but the foundation endures. Jung believed humans also have such a foundation, an inner core not destroyed by upheaval. Before sleep, when vague fears arise, this image reminds the unconscious you can experience change without losing yourself. There is a gentle truth. Mountains do not resist destruction as if it were an enemy. They allow landslides, allow snow to fall, allow rock to break, and over time they stabilize again. In inner life, allowing emotions to pass rather than blocking them is often far safer than suppression. Jung called this integration. Energy is released, then returns to a new balance. When this story is told slowly and evenly, the brain recognizes that disturbance does not equal immediate danger. The nervous system relaxes. Awareness need not stay alert. What is described is not catastrophe but strength, guided by time. Some mountains appear peaceful, yet carry histories of countless transformations. They have collapsed and reformed many times. That history makes them stronger. Jung would say psychological maturity is not the absence of crisis, but the ability to pass through it without closing the heart. Before sleep, you do not need to analyze your own upheavals. This part of the story does not ask you to resolve anything. It simply invites trust. Trust in a deeper order where creation and destruction both belong, and where nothing exists solely to weaken you. As this section closes, the mountain returns to familiar stillness. Disturbance has passed. Space settles. Like after an avalanche, everything feels quieter, wider. You no longer need to watch. You no longer need to anticipate. Mountains have held their strength for millions of years and remain. And you in this moment may rest in the trust that even what lies hidden within you is supported by a foundation stronger than you think. Sleep arrives soft and deep like stability after movement. Most of the time, a mountain's strength is unused. Faults rest. Pressure is held. Stability remains. Not because the mountain is weak, but because it knows how to wait. Jung saw this as the image of a mature psyche, not without impulses but not ruled by them. People fear unseen forces because they feel unpredictable. But Earth does not fear itself. Mountains do not release pressure just to feel lighter. They wait until release serves the whole system. Before sleep, this reassures the mind not every tension must be resolved tonight. Jung believed the unconscious has its own intelligence. Trusted it knows when to surface something and when to hold it. Dreams, sudden emotions, wordless spaces, all are its language. Like geological events, they do not appear to destroy but to rebalance. As your body settles into bed, it assesses safety. When told this story calmly, the nervous system hears danger has passed. Nothing requires immediate response. Hidden forces may exist without harm. Some mountains bear scars that become part of new form. No effort to erase. No desire to return to before. Jung called this accepting inner history, allowing experience to shape deeper structure. Before sleep, you do not need to stabilize yourself with positive thinking. This story does not ask you to believe everything is fine. It only asks you to trust that everything belongs to a larger process that does not require your wakefulness. As images return to stillness, a deep silence emerges, not tense but settled. Like earth after shaking, your body stabilizes breath, slows heart, softens awareness, loosens. At the deepest level, this section is not about danger. It is about trust in foundations. Trust that something within you, like Earth's core, is strong enough to hold all movement without breaking. And when that trust is received, sleep becomes natural. Mountains keep their strength in silence. Disturbance is a moment, not a constant. And so are you. You are not today's tensions. You are the ground that holds them. In that gentle knowing, you may let go completely, allowing sleep to come deep, slow, and safe. Part 15. Mountains as Earth's memory. If Earth has memory, mountains hold it longest, not in words or images, but in stone layers and silent traces stacked over hundreds of millions of years. Mountains do not tell the past, they carry it in their shape. Before sleep, this brings deep peace. Not every memory must be recalled to exist. Some things happened, left their mark, and may now rest. Jung believed the unconscious stores memory in this way quietly without demanding attention, yet always present as the foundation of the present self. Within mountain layers lie traces of ancient oceans, extinct creatures, vanished magnetic fields. Everything that existed left a mark. Yet mountains are not burdened by memory. They do not collapse under the past. They carry it as part of present structure. Jung believed much suffering comes from trying to erase what once was. Mountains teach another way. Memory need not be removed for life to continue. It only needs integration. Before sleep, imagining memory as layered stone, stable, non-judging, helps the mind stop resisting its own history. There is a gentle truth: every grain of sand was once part of a peak. Rock erodes into gravel, then sand, then travels far. Value is not lost, only form changes. Jung believed identity works the same way. What once mattered deeply may fade, but not become meaningless. As you lie listening, the unconscious senses that time is not an enemy. It transforms rather than erases. Sharp edges soften. Heavy things disperse. Everything finds place in a larger structure. Jung called the collective unconscious humanity's archive. Mountains symbolize it perfectly. Listening to them at night connects you not only to Earth's story, but to generations who felt awe, humility, and reassurance when facing mountains. Before sleep, this part does not ask you to revisit personal memories. It asks you to trust they are safely held. You do not need to guard them. Sleep will do what mountains have done for ages. Keep what matters, let the rest soften. As this part closes, mountains become sensation, a feeling that you are shaped by many events, and that this is not a burden, it is a foundation. In this feeling, the body relaxes further. Awareness withdraws. Sleep, like gentle time, covers memory, not erasing it, only quieting it. Memory mountains whisper exists to support the present. Ancient rock does not remind Earth of its past. It simply holds today's landscape. Jung believed unconscious memory functions the same way. Many feel they must process the past to rest. Mountains offer another image. They do not dig through layers to understand themselves. They trust their current form. Before sleep, releasing analysis is a great gift to the mind. Some fossils remain unseen deep within mountains. They exist without recognition. Jung would say some experiences belong there. Not all must be brought into light. Quiet holding preserves balance. As rock erodes, memory transforms. Peaks become valleys. Weight becomes wisdom. Jung called this distillation of experience. Before sleep, the mind often returns to the past to repeat it. This story gently invites another way. Imagine your memories already stacked neatly. They are in place. They no longer make noise. Earth remembers without being trapped. Mountains carry vanished worlds and still stand. Jung believed humans can do the same, carry history without being ruled by it. As the story flows, mountain memory and your memory merge. Memory no longer needs solving. It becomes quiet ground where the present rests safely. Now you need not remember anything. Mountains ask no questions. Time continues. Sleep opens like a soft night layer, covering memory gently so you may rest deeply. Part 16. Surrendering into deep time. At this point, there is nothing left to learn or understand. The story has gone far enough that you no longer need to follow. Like a mountain, you do not need to move to be in the right place. You only need to rest. Deep time does not hurry. It does not count hours or minutes, but moves in shifts too small to notice. Mountains do not know today's date. They do not distinguish last night from tonight, and so they do not tire. Before sleep, this brings relief. You do not need to bring human time into rest. Jung believed that when the ego releases control, the unconscious restores natural balance. Sleep is not disappearance, but return to an older rhythm than thought, where body and mind know exactly what to do. Mountains do not speak or explain, yet their presence slows everything around them. When you allow this image to remain blurred, undefined, the nervous system understands there is no danger. Nothing needs resolving now. If thoughts remain, let them drift like thin clouds. No pushing away. No holding. Deep time will soften everything, as wind and water softened mountains over ages. You do not need to fall asleep quickly. Mountains never rush. They wait. In waiting, things arrange themselves. Breath slows without effort. The heart finds rest rhythm. The body grows heavy as if placed upon solid stone. In deep time, there is no success or failure, only gentle continuation. Jung called this the ego merging with a larger whole, where identity need not be constantly defined. Before sleep, this is the greatest gift, permission to be no one for a while. If you still hear this voice, let it fade like an echo dissolving in a valley. Words have done their work. What remains belongs to silence. Mountains remain. Time continues, and you very gently, very slowly, are held by a rhythm that asks nothing, no effort, no alertness, just surrender like stone to wind, snow to melt, awareness to sleep. Just before sleep truly begins, there is a subtle moment when you are unsure whether you are thinking or simply feeling. Time opens into space. Everything slows without reason. Deep time does not ask what you accomplished today. Mountains never ask stone if it is good enough to rest. They allow everything to exist as it is. Jung believed This is the psyche's most primal state, unconditional acceptance. As you lie still, boundaries soften. Weight becomes support. Like mountains as part of Earth, you need not hold yourself. If resistance remains, I'm not asleep yet, let it be. Mountains do not resist wind, they let it pass. True letting go is not forcing disappearance, but ceasing opposition. Personal stories fade. You are no longer a character. You are part of a larger rhythm where day and night, waking and sleeping are phases of one movement. Without a role to hold, the mind truly rests. You may not remember hearing this part. That is fine. Sleep need not be witnessed. It only needs permission. Let breath find its own rhythm. Mountains do not teach rivers how to flow. They simply stand. Your unconscious is finding the gentlest path into rest. In the final moment before awareness dissolves, you may feel floating, falling, or opening. This is safety, not loss of control. The ego releases only when it feels safe. Mountains have stood through countless nights without guarding. Earth has turned through cycles without reminders. And so will tomorrow come. There are no more words, no journey left. Only a soft presence where thought has no shape and sensation needs no name. Here, sleep is not a destination, but a gentle, dissolving into the deepest rhythm of life. Part 17. The silence of mountains, where sound disappears. There is a kind of silence that exists only in very high places. Not the silence of nothing happening, but the silence that comes when everything is far enough away that it no longer needs to speak. On mountains, sound does not vanish at once. It travels farther and farther, growing thinner, until it no longer has a reason to continue. Before sleep, touching this image brings a deep sense of safety. In daily life, the mind is rarely at rest. Even when the surroundings are quiet, there are still voices inside, plans, memories, worries. Jung believed inner noise is a sign of the ego trying to maintain control. And for sleep to arrive, that control must be set down gently. Mountains do not silence sound. They simply make sound unnecessary. Wind passes over stone, creating the faintest noise. Then the vastness of space allows that noise to dissolve. This is an important Jungian image. Silence does not come from suppression, but from expanding the space that can contain everything. In the half-awake, half-dreaming state, the human mind begins to expand in the same way. Thoughts still appear, but they no longer collide. They pass through like echoes in a valley, arriving and leaving without leaving a trace. Before sleep, this is the most natural state yet, one that modern humans rarely allow themselves to enter. There are moments on mountains when you realize you hear nothing at all, and that moment feels strangely full. Jung called this pure presence, when consciousness is no longer filled with content. Before sleep, being in a state that is full without noise allows the nervous system to shift into deep rest. The silence of mountains does not demand that you be silent. It only invites you not to add anything. No more thoughts, no more questions, no more expectations. And when nothing more is added, what is already there naturally softens. If you still hear small sounds, the distant murmur of the world, or the faint sounds of your own body, let them be. Mountains do not eliminate sound. They give sound enough space to dissolve, and when allowed, sound does not need to hold on. Jung believed the unconscious communicates most effectively in silence, not through words but through sensation. Before sleep, as language loses its shape, the unconscious begins its work, organizing, connecting, healing quietly. You do not need to hear it for it to happen. At its deepest level, this part of the story does not aim to create perfect quiet. It only creates the conditions in which quiet can appear. Just as mountains do not create silence, but are places where silence finds its ground. As the story drifts toward its end, you may no longer clearly distinguish outer sounds from inner voices. They merge, then dissolve together. There is no clear moment marking the transition, only a gentle settling like wind stopping, without you noticing right away. Mountains remain there in a stillness that needs no protection. And you, in this moment, may also stand still in your own way, without holding, without listening, without thinking. Simply letting silence do what it does best, hold the mind, and guide it into sleep. There is something rarely spoken about silence. Silence is not the opposite of sound. It comes after sound has finished its work. On mountains, you are not forced to be silent. You simply realize there is nothing more to say. And in that realization, a deep rest begins. In inner life, Jung believed people often fear silence because they mistake it for emptiness. But mountain silence is different. It is not empty. It is full of space, so full that every thought has room to dissolve instead of collide. Before sleep, this kind of silence prevents the mind from exhausting itself. On some mountain nights, you may hear your own heartbeat more clearly than any other sound. Not because it beats louder, but because everything else has grown quiet enough. Jung called this the moment when consciousness stops turning outward and begins turning inward, not to analyze, but to feel life unfolding quietly. This stillness does not shrink a person, it expands them. When noise no longer fills the mind has space to breathe. And in that space, small tensions find nowhere to cling. They fall away like echoes, dropping into vastness and never returning. Before sleep, many people seek quiet by turning things off, lights, devices, sound. But mountain silence reminds us true quiet does not come from switching off, but from not adding more. When no new thoughts are added, old thoughts naturally fade. Jung believed the deepest healing state does not occur when we are doing something, but when we are no longer doing anything. The silence of mountains is the space of this non-doing. It does not push. It does not guide. It does not interfere. It simply remains long enough for the mind to reorganize itself. If a few small voices remain a fragment of thought, a vague feeling, let them whisper. Mountains are not disturbed by a few scattered sounds. They know every sound has a short life when placed in a space wide enough. And your mind too is becoming wide enough not to react. There is a subtle moment hard to define when you are no longer sure whether you are listening or simply being. In that moment, the story no longer matters. The voice is no longer central. Even the image of mountains fades. What remains is a light sense of presence, without tension, without waiting. Here, sleep is not something that will arrive. It has already begun. There is no clear boundary, no door closing. Only a steady settling, like snow falling in a deep night without making a sound. The silence of mountains does not end. It continues even after you fall asleep. And in that continuation, you no longer need to stay awake. No need to listen. No need to remember. Just let silence do what it always does best. Return everything to a primordial state of rest. Part 18. Mountains in Human Dreams. There is a deep reason mountains appear in human dreams across all cultures and eras. When the mind loosens its hold on the outer world, the oldest images rise from the depths, and mountains, tall, silent, unmoving, are among them. In dreams, mountains are rarely just mountains. They are challenges, distances, shelters, anchors, or simply a presence that needs no explanation. Jung believed recurring dream images are not accidental. They are the language of the unconscious speaking in symbols rather than words. Some dreams place you climbing a mountain. You do not always reach the summit. But the meaning is not in conquest. In Jungian language, climbing often reflects inner movement, not to achieve something, but to approach a different perspective. Before sleep, hearing these images prepares the unconscious for its own journey. In other dreams, you stand at the foot of a mountain, looking up without moving. The mountain is there too large to ignore, yet calm enough not to frighten. Jung saw this as an image of the inner center, something that does not require immediate action, only recognition. Sleep often begins at this very point, when you stop pushing yourself to move forward. Sometimes dream mountains are indistinct, seen through mist darkness, or felt only as height. This matters. The unconscious does not need sharp images. It needs sensation. And the sensation of mountains, solid, slow, expansive, is exactly what the mind seeks before deep sleep. Jung believed that in dreams the ego is no longer central. It becomes an observer. The mountain then is not an object but a stabilizing axis around which the dream turns. Before sleep, as you listen, the image of the mountain shifts from conscious imagination into dream space where it continues without your attention. Some dreams find you lost in mountains, no map, no clear direction, yet no panic. Jung believed being lost in dreams often signals inner reorganization. Old paths are no longer needed. Before sleep, allowing yourself not to know where you are going is a profound act of trust. As the story continues, mountain images may merge with your own mountains you have seen or never seen. This means the unconscious has begun to receive. The story is no longer the narrator's. It becomes material for your dreams, and then at some point you will no longer hear clearly. The voice recedes. Sentences lose form. Mountains are no longer images but ground. Upon that ground, dreams begin weaving their own stories, without words, logic, or wakefulness. Mountains have accompanied human dreams for a very long time, and tonight they accompany you not to test or guide, but simply to be there as a familiar archetype, solid enough for the mind to let go completely and drift deeper into sleep. There is something gentle about how mountains appear in dreams. They never rush. They never urge you to climb faster or understand more. They simply exist, as if saying, "I have been here a long time, and I will remain." That endurance makes the unconscious feel safe. In many dreams, mountains are not central. They sit at the edge in the distance, appearing briefly. Yet wherever they are, they provide orientation. Jung believed this reflects the self, the deepest center of the psyche. Not commanding, not interfering, quietly holding order. Before sleep, letting that image rest in the background frees the ego from needing to lead. Some dreams show you sitting quietly on a mountainside, doing nothing, going nowhere, just looking down. This is one of the most healing dream images. It speaks of permission rather than action. Jung saw this as the moment consciousness stops interfering with the unconscious and deep rebalancing occurs. Sometimes mountains in dreams have no form at all, only a sense of weight, height, or solidity behind you. This is crucial because the unconscious thinks in states, not sharp images. And the mountain state, steady, slow, enduring, is what your mind is relearning as you sleep. Jung believed dreams do not need decoding to be valuable. They are not puzzles. They are natural movements of the soul, like stone shifting within mountains unseen. Before sleep, hearing of mountains in dreams matters not for what you will dream, but for allowing dreaming to begin. You may dream of mountains tonight, or you may not. It does not matter. The image has been planted deep where memory is unnecessary. Dreams, if they come, will come in their own way, and if they do not rest, still happens. At this stage, you no longer need to listen. If the voice blurs, if words dissolve, that is not distraction. It means the ego has begun to sleep, and the unconscious has taken over. The mountain is no longer a symbol. It is the ground on which dreams rest. And just as in a dream you might enter a mist-filled valley without noticing the transition, you will pass from listening into dreaming without knowing when it happened. No marker, no announcement, only a gentle continuation. Mountains in dreams do not need you to follow. They only need you to rest. And in that rest, dreaming, whether with images or without, continues its ancient work, organizing, healing, and carrying you deeper into sleep. Part 19. Mountains and biological rhythms. When the placed body learns to slow. There are places on Earth where time seems to move more slowly, not because clocks change, but because the human body begins to follow a different rhythm. Mountains are such places. Movement becomes restrained. Life unfolds with natural consideration. No reminder is needed to slow down. The environment itself whispers it. Before sleep, your body is seeking a similar rhythm. Not one dictated by schedules, but guided by deep biology. Jung believed body and unconscious are more closely linked than we think. When the mind pushes, the body tires. When the mind releases, the body remembers how to rest. At high altitudes, breathing slows and deepens. The heart adjusts to conserve energy. Sleep arrives not as a collapse but as an even settling. This is not weakness but survival wisdom. Mountains teach the body that it need not exert itself just to exist. In modern life, biological rhythms are often pulled off course. Artificial light, constant sound, endless information make the body forget self-regulation. Before sleep, listening to mountains is a gentle reminder you may return to your own rhythm, not the world's. Jung believed many psychological disturbances arise from living too far from one's natural rhythm. When consciousness races ahead, the unconscious cannot keep up. Sleep is where those rhythms meet again. Mountains in their slowness mediate that meeting safely. As you lie still, you may notice your body finding its familiar breath without instruction. Shoulders sink, jaw loosens. The heart no longer needs to prove anything. This is an ancient rhythm carried long before clocks or obligations. On mountains, day and night are clearly felt. When darkness comes, it truly comes. When quiet arrives, it is real. In such conditions, the body does not need commands to sleep. It recognizes night and adjusts. This story helps your body recognize night has arrived and you are safe. If tension remains in muscles or breath, do not rush to release it. Mountains do not hurry tension away. They give time, space to work. And so does your body. You do not need to relax immediately. You only need not to hold tighter. Jung believed healing is not repair, but restoration of rhythm. When rhythm returns, many problems dissolve. Sleep is not a reward for a perfect day. It is a biological need, like mountains needing night to cool and stillness to endure. As this part continues, you may no longer hear clearly. That means the body is moving ahead of consciousness. Biological rhythm is leading. And when the body leads, sleep no longer needs to be sought, it is arriving. Mountains teach slowing, not through instruction, but through presence, lasting millions of years. Tonight, even as an image, that presence reminds your body no running, no holding, no staying awake. Just let the rhythm slow. And within that slowness, sleep will find you. Human biological rhythm is never lost, only obscured. Beneath habits and pressure, it remains intact, waiting for enough quiet to emerge. Mountains do not teach anything new. They help the body remember. At altitude, people move less, not from laziness, but conservation. Every movement has reason. Jung would call this a psyche no longer scattered energy returning to center. Before sleep, as you stop reacting, energy returns home. There is a deep similarity between biological rhythm and the unconscious. Neither obeys commands. You cannot order sleep, nor order the heart to slow, but you can create conditions. Mountains do this by existing. This story does the same. At night, the body shifts subtly. Temperature drops. Muscles loosen. The nervous system moves from alertness to repair. These changes occur beyond conscious control. Jung believed such moments build the deepest trust that parts of us know how to care for us. On mountains, night arrives gradually. Light withdraws slowly. Darkness spreads gently. When night fully comes, all beings are ready. This image tells your body there is no need to rush. Sleep is not a fall, but a soft transition. You may notice you no longer need to adjust position. The body has chosen its way of resting. This is important. When the body chooses, the ego can step back. If wakefulness remains, let it drift. On cold mountain nights, creatures do not fight the cold. They adapt, conserving energy. You are doing the same, drawing energy away from thought toward restoration. At its deepest, this part is about permission. Permission for the body to slow, for the heart to find its rhythm, for breath to be imperfect. And when permission is given, the body responds by doing what it always knew, carrying you into sleep. You may not remember this part. That is natural. Biological rhythm does not remember consciously. It works in darkness and silence. When memory is unnecessary, deep sleep is near. Mountains need no clocks to rest. Neither do you. Tonight, as everything slows enough, the body will guide you onward, not with thought, but with the ancient rhythm of life. You need do nothing. Just let the body go first. Part 20. Conclusion. Returning to the inner mountain. After all the mountains you have passed of time, memory, dreams, and rhythm, what remains may not be images, but a quiet feeling that there is nowhere you need to go. Jung once said the deepest human journey is not outward but inward toward the center. That center is not loud or demanding. It is like an inner mountain always present, whether you remember it or not. This inner mountain does not need conquering. It sets no challenges. It asks you to be nothing more. It simply exists, steady and silent, a place to lean when effort is laid down. Before sleep, remembering there is nothing more to do is deeply freeing. No self-improvement tonight, no tomorrow to plan. All roles may rest. Imagine your inner mountain has no sharp peak, no path. It is solid and rounded, holding everything you carried through the day. Thoughts may rest there, feelings may sit. And you, not as doer or thinker, are simply present. Here there is no time to keep up with, no questions to answer. Jung called this the ego, stepping aside so the self may appear. When the self is present, sleep is no longer a goal, it is a natural result. If any sound remains, let it stay distant. If any thought remains, let it lie still. The inner mountain does not react or judge. It remains long enough for everything else to settle. When sleep comes without announcement, let it arrive like night mist on mountain slopes. Not possessing, not changing, just softening all edges. The story has completed its work. Nothing needs remembering. Everything may dissolve lightly. There is a special moment when you no longer feel yourself as the center of experience, not because you disappear, but because you no longer need to stand at the center. Like sitting at the foot of a mountain at night, you feel not diminished but rightly placed. Your inner mountain creates that feeling. It does not humble or elevate you. It returns you to a natural proportion held by something more stable than fleeting thoughts or emotions. Jung called this meeting the self, not a concept, but an experience. When the self is present, the ego releases control. Energy returns to breathing, resting, healing. You do not need to picture the inner mountain clearly. It may be only a vague sense of being held. The unconscious needs states, not images, and this state is unconditional safety. If some awareness remains, let it rest on the slope. Do not push it away. Mountains exclude nothing. They give everything a place, and when everything has a place, nothing competes. You may feel yourself falling, floating, or dissolving. Do not interpret it. These are signs of softened boundaries. When boundaries soften, sleep continues naturally. The inner mountain does not hold you in sleep, nor push you into it. It stands still, as it always has, so you may lean without grasping. And not grasping allows the deepest rest. At the final layer of this journey, nothing needs remembering. The story has done its work, bringing you close to yourself, then quietly stepping aside. If sleep has come, let it remain without awareness. If it has not yet come fully, let quiet continue its work. Nothing is wrong. Deep time has no right moment. The inner mountain remains when you sleep, when you wake. But in moments like this, when everything settles, you can sense it most clearly without naming it. And in that soft, gentle sensing, you do not need to be anyone. You do not need to become anything. You only need to be. As the story ends, you no longer need to follow words. What needed to be said has been said. Images have finished their task. What remains is a calm space where nothing is required. The journey through mountains was never outward. Earth's peaks mirrored something deeper, how the mind learns to rest with itself. Jung believed that when people stop seeking safety outside, they touch a more stable inner ground. Mountains existed long before humans, and perhaps that is why they never rush. They do not need proof. They do not fear being forgotten. They simply remain through cycles longer than memory. Being near such an image, even in imagination, offers primal safety. Throughout this story, nothing needed fixing. The only invitation was to let go of understanding, of achieving, of treating sleep as a goal. Jung said the unconscious works through permission, not pressure. Sleep, like all deep processes, comes when not forced. Mountains do not sleep, but they teach rest through presence. If you are still awake, that is fine. If you are drifting, that is fine. There is no right state. Deep time does not judge. You may soon remember only a vague feeling of being set down, supported, allowed to rest. That is enough. Sometimes the most healing thing is not understanding yourself more, but stopping observation for a while. Sleep is one of the few moments when you are allowed to be no one, and that is precious. As you lie in darkness with nothing to respond to, body and mind return to their primal rhythm, older than language, older than stories, older than thought. Mountains do not teach this. They remind us it is still there. If your day was long or heavy, leave it outside the night. Nothing must be carried into sleep. Tomorrow will come not because you prepared enough, but because time continues. As mountains stand through every night without guarding, you need not listen anymore. If the voice fades, let it. The story has finished its work. What remains is silence, where sleep arrives naturally. If stories like this help you feel lighter and safer before sleep, you may subscribe to Stories for Sleep. Each night, the channel will be here, quiet, unhurried, telling stories deep enough that you do not need to stay awake. For now, you need do nothing. Sleep well, sleep deeply, in the enduring, gentle stillness like a mountain in the night.